This is 3-2. Now we're moving on to logarithmic functions. A logarithmic function, first of all, is the inverse of an exponential. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start out going back through the Algebra 2 stuff that you should have learned last year. A log is the inverse of an exponential. And we talked about what an inverse was earlier on in the year. To find an inverse, you swap x and y. So if we think about, let's just do our basic parent graph of y equals 2 to the x. 2 to the x passes through the point 0, 1, and then over 1 up 2. So if you made a little xy chart, it would be, and let's go ahead and add in negative 1, negative 1, a half, 0, 1, and 1, 2. Okay, it looks like this. It has an asymptote of the x-axis. Now to swap x and y, I'm literally going to swap x and y. The y's become the x's, and the x's become the y's. And I'm going to graph that. I'm going to go 0.5, negative 1, that'll be here, 1, 0, and then 2, 1. What the log graph does is it looks like that, and it has an asymptote of the y-axis. So, in the way you can remember that, e exponential looks like that. Logs look like this. So log exponential. E, like E, and log. Okay. The domain for a log is x is greater than 0, and the range is all real numbers. Because if we think about the domain and range for an exponent, the domain of an exponent was all real numbers, and the range was y is greater than 0. Well, if you swap x and y, you also just swap the domain and range. Okay, now let's look at some properties of logs. First, I want to look at the exponent rules for a second, because logs and exponents go together. Our exponent rules are that if you multiply like bases, you add your exponents. So the log rule, the inverse, is if you add the logs together, you multiply the numbers. So it would be like if you had log base 3 of 7 plus log base 3 of 21, you would do, wow, that's a horrible number. That's going to be really big. I don't know how to do that. How about 2? That'll be log base 3 of 7 times 2, which is 14. And then if you divide exponents, or like bases, that's a 2. Dang it, I can't do anything right. 2. You would subtract your exponents. That'd be x to the third. So it would be log, you subtract goes with division. So over here, if you have subtraction, you divide. So if it's log base 3 of 5 minus log base 3 of 2, it'd be log base 3 of 5 over 2. And then the next piece is that you take what's in front and you make it an exponent. That doesn't really go with anything with exponents. That's the same thing as log base 3 of x squared. And then my favorite rule, the whoopsh rule. If you have to rewrite a log as an exponent, you do a to the y equals x. So if I had log base 2 of 8 equals 3, I would rewrite it as 2 whoopsh to the, if you travel around the whip, what do you hit next? Well, the 3. Go across the equal sign, the 8. So you try one. How about log base 5 of 25 equals 2? You try it. Okay, let's see if you're right. Start here, 5, whoosh, to the 2 equals 25. Did you get it? Yay. Or boo, whichever applies, I'm not sure. And then the other rule is if you go the other way, say I have 2 to the 3 equals 8, I write the word log, I start with the 2, I whoosh, 8. Yay. Okay, and we'll do some more of those in a second. So it says practice problems. Express in expanded form. Expanded form is write it with more than one log. So what we need to remember is that multiplication and addition go together, and division and subtraction go together. So if I have two things being multiplied together, multiplication goes with addition. So to expand it, I would write it as log base 2 of x plus log base 2 of y. Division goes with subtraction, so it would be log base 3 of y minus log base 3 of 8. And then the number goes in the front, so it would be 5 log x. And then this one's a little tricky. We would rewrite that as x to the 1/3, and then the exponent moves to the front. Condensed form is going the other way of what we just did. We're just going to go the other way. So the first thing I want to do is move my number in the front and make it an exponent. Then I'm going to condense it. Plus goes with times, so it'll be log base 2 of x times y to the 5th. And that's done. And then this one, the first thing I'm going to do is make the 1/4 an exponent, so it would be log base 4 of y. I'm not sure why I wrote that real high like that. Y minus log base 4 to the x to the 1/4. And then what does minus go with? Minus goes with subtraction, so it would be log base 4 of y over x to the 1/4. And now these say solve. And I'm sitting here wondering how good y'all are at this. And if you're ready to move on to the next thing, we're going to stop this video here. We'll practice the Algebra 2 skills before we'll go on to the pre-cal stuff. The first thing you want to do, step 1, is condense it. So we need to move any numbers in front to exponents. Minus. Then the minus goes with subtraction, so we write it as 1 log of x squared over 4 equals 25. Then another rule that we didn't look at is that if you have a log equal a log, the logs can cancel. So it would be x squared over 4 equals 25. And then you could just cross multiply. X squared equals 100. And then how do you get rid of squared? You take the square root. X equals plus or minus 10. But there's a rule. You can't take the log of a negative number. There's actually 3 rules in math. Rule number 1 was you can't divide by 0. 0 on the bottom, you can't do that. Rule number 2 was you can't take the square root of a negative number. Rule number 3 is you can't take the log of a negative number. No. So if I plug in a negative 10 right here, I would be taking the log of a negative number, so I actually throw it away, and my answer is just 10. Number 8, I'm going to condense it. What does plus go with? Plus goes with multiplication. Then I don't have logs on both sides, so I can't cancel them out. So what I have to do is whoopsh, 2 to the 3rd equals x squared plus 2x. How did I get that? I distributed my x right here. And then that's 8. How do I solve something like this? I move everything to one side. X squared plus 2x minus 8. Then I factor it, and be 4 and negative 2. So it'd be negative 4 and 2. I can't have a negative though, because if I plug in a negative 4 right there, I have the log of negative number, so x equals 2. And I'm going to stop this video. That's as far as we're going to get with that one, and then we're probably going to practice. Probably with what?